Hi all, my name's Hannah and I'm the C5 Nut. Well, I look messy. It's been one of them days today. So another electrical issue. Well, not such as an issue, but a little electrical project. But for the van. Now, I have went and bought myself a soundbar from the car boot. I paid a fiver for it. I mean, you know, a fiver, come on. Um, so the plan is to obviously I watch quite a lot of YouTube videos, especially the Karens or the Kevins, the Karens and the Kevins. I do listen to a lot of their stories, and it's something I do like before I go to sleep, and possibly like before I wake up, or like when I wake up. Yeah. So um, I've been using my phone quite a lot, and I find myself that come sort of lunchtime-ish, my phone's about half flat. So what I've decided to do was obviously get this sound bar, but then play it through the sound bar rather than through my speakers on my phone, which in theory the battery should last a little bit longer on my phone. So today's challenge is trying to convert a soundbar that was designed for a house to actually run off a van. Now, a lot of you know that I've actually got an inverter, so I could just plug it straight in. But there's one thing the people need to understand is, right, when you're living at home, you know, your house, you plug whatever you want into the socket, happy days. Now, when it comes to van life, it's not as easy as that. Okay, yeah, I could, you know, plug the soundbar into my inverter and it will quite happy run. The problem is the power it takes to actually run this soundbar is actually a lot more power because I'm having to run the inverter. So, which means in theory, if I was to run the inverter for the whole entire day, just to power the soundbar, the batteries will be flat by like within 8 or 9 hours. My batteries are quite old. They're getting on a bit now. They're about 4 years old, so they are due for replacement. And at this moment in time, I just don't want to change them until sort of September, October time before winter time. There's no point me changing them right now, you know. So what I'm going to show you guys today is how to convert something that's mains powered into something that we can actually just use it straight off a battery. And you know, guys, don't just think, you know, it's just purely van life. You know, if you do camping, if you go off in your caravan or something like this, what I'm going to show you, you can actually do the same with whatever you want to run. There is a little device I will use just to boost the power up a little bit, but let's see what I bought on the bench. So my bench is a bit messy, you know, obviously I'm still doing motorhome stuff and all that stuff. This is the nice lovely soundbar that I bought for a fiver. It does come with a remote. It is Bluetooth. It's got HDMI ports and all the other bits and pieces. There's not a lot of deal on the back there. This is actually the mains that goes off to that socket up there. So what we're going to try and do is make this run off a battery instead of mains. Now, I just want to show you guys that this does fully work with it plugged in. So where's that remote? Now I've got my van phone. It's a mobile phone that I use as a tablet, and it's purely for the van. But if I was to unmute it,
came and we had lots of fun, and then everyone went home later. I then got a phone.
So basically, that's, you know, I've just got I'm listening to our Reddit, Karen, Titans are dress code, big mistake, blah blah blah. So yeah, anything to do with the Karens I kind of like. So What I'm going to do is stop the video. I'm going to pull these 4 screws out and disconnect. I'll tell you what, let's just disconnect that now. Oh, that's a pain. Right, let me just take the screws out. I'll pop this off and then I'll bring you back. Okay guys, so I've now taken that off. There was a couple of plugs and whatnot that you have to unplug in there. So this is the actual unit. Now you see there's 2 boards. Now the top board is actually the sound card, so that does all the sound and the amplifier and stuff. This bottom board here is actually the mains. So what you want to do, and I will say you've got to be really careful when you do this. Now we are quite lucky in a way of I did see somewhere, I think it's under there, I'll just zoom it in about there. You see if I move that plug out the way, it actually says 16.5 volts. So that's what it takes to actually run this. Now I can actually prove that voltage. I will say what I'm about to do, please, whatever you do, don't copy what I do. Right, so get the old trusty multimeter. Right, I'm gonna have to do this two-handed. This is gonna be fun. Switch that on. Let's see if I can get the old stand out. There we go. Okay, so that's that. Right, making sure that's switched off, which it is. Oh, let's just unplug it. Unplug it to be safe than sorry, guys. Right, now let's plug that back in. Like so. Right, now I will say, as soon as I go to plug it back in, all of this will become live. So please, whatever you do, make sure you do it carefully. So the wire that we're interested in, this little one here that's linking the 2 boards together. So what we are going to do is just test the connections down on here and see what voltage we get. Right, so let's plug that in. Let's switch that on. Now that's now all live. I will say, if you were to touch it and prod it, you will get electric shock. Trust me, it's not pleasant. Right, I'm going to try and do this one-handed, which is never good. Right, that one on that one there. And my voltmeter is having a meltdown. There we go, much better. That one would do. So 16.4 volts. It's loose connection there, but yeah, 16.4 volts. Right, now what I can do sometimes, right, so that's now unplugged, which means we can unplug that. Now what you can do is, if you pull this plug out like so, feed it 12 volts and see if it works on 12 volts. Now I did try that before I actually brought you back. Even though I put 12 volts through this bottom board, which is the amplifier board, it lights up, but there's no sound coming out of it at all. So the only way for me to get 16 volts out of a 12 volt battery, I'm going to have to use a thing called a DC to DC converter, which basically boosts the power up. Now I've got this one here. Now this one is a DC to DC XL609E1. I love these things. There's two different types. There's a one that's called a buck down, and there's one called a buck up. Now, a buck down, basically you put 12 volts in, and you can set it as low as 3 volts. This particular one, you can actually put 5 volts in, and you can crank this right up, this little blue Verapot. You can crank it up, so if you put 5 volts in, you can actually draw up to 32 volts coming out. Now, I will say, before you connect this to anything, and I mean absolute anything, you would have to double check with a multimeter. Now, at the moment, I still need to link the 2 cables for the booster pack. So what I've doing is, on my bench, I'll tell you what, guys, let me stick some wires on this and then I'll bring you back. Okay guys, so I've now put a wire attached to it. It's connected to my booster pack. My booster pack is a bit flat, as you can see from there. So this is that little device I was telling you about. So this is the DC to DC buck converter. So it's called a buck up, and all you got to do is turn this little, let me zoom in a bit, you just got to turn that little knob just there, and you can make the voltage go up and down to whatever you need. Now what we're doing is the input voltage is 11.56 volts. So what we need just to make this soundbar actually work, I think it was 16.4. What I'm going to do is, because of the loads and everything else, I'm going to put it on 16.1, maybe 16.2, and then that will that should keep the soundbar quite happy. Right, so what I'm going to do is screw this. Now, I can't remember if you've got to screw it anti-clockwise or so I'm just trying to do this one-handed. Right, so I'm going clockwise, it's not working. Let's go anti-clockwise. Oh look, the voltage is going up. Alright, so what we want is, let's go up a little bit. About, ooh, let's just bring it down a little bit. Come on. You only have to turn the Verapot just slightly and it will just zoom up and down like a yo-yo. I think that will do. Around about 16 volts is good enough. And then all we got to do is, you see this power board here. Right, now the bottom board is actually the mains, and they're just plugged there. So we're just going to plug straight into this here. So what I'm going to do, actually I might as well just do it while I'm talking to you guys, is let's remove the old power board, just so those keyboard warriors don't go, oh, it's still plugged into mains. No, I don't think it is, mate. Right. So I've got to pull this out. One-handed is never good. Right, what can I use? Let's see if we can pull this out. It's been glued in as well. Oh, lovely. Don't you just love... There we go. Oh, yeah, it's definitely glued in, alright. Actually, it might help if I took that screw out. Right, that's that screw out. Hey, look at that. So that's the old power board. So mains goes in on that black plug, and it then came out on the top there at 16.5 volts. So don't need it. My voice is going then. Right, don't need any of that crap, do we? Right. Guys, I'm going to put you on hold for a second. Let me just quickly connect the speaker inputs back in and I'll bring it back. Okay guys, so everything's all back in where it's supposed to be, including the speaker wires. That's that power lead that was connected to, where's that board disappeared to? Oh yeah, there it is. So that's the little plug that used to came from this power board, just from there. Now that is actually now plugged into our little DC to DC converter, and that cable goes all the way down to my booster pack. I put quite a long lead on it because obviously it's going to go in the van. So let's see what happens. We'll flip it over. Right, now we've got a red light. Okay, so the buttons are not working, but I had this issue before with it. So if you recently plugged it in, the buttons won't work. You have to use the remote, but then after you use the remote, then all the buttons will work. So let's switch that on.
Paired.
It's now paired. Let's put our good old I'll just move out the way so I'm not entering my code on video. Right, so let's put the old Karens back on.
Kids, why would you trust him to be responsible for your daughter's college fund?
So as you can
$8,000
see,
is
that's
also
now
not
actually
enough
working
to make a
straight off
significant
that.
difference in a college that is that
So
expensive.
question
So you would just
is,
be delaying the
if I go
inevitable.
back down
Some
here,
would need to get student loans or reconsider other options.
If I then pull the, see it stops. But if I shove that back in there again,
again, bloody remote.
Paired.
It works.
Keep your finances separate and make sure your daughter's
So,
investment fund cannot be infiltrated.
That's now running.
The other kid is
off
13.
that.
There's still time to heavily encourage your husband to put
All
money
because
away
of
for
this.
her and be clear with her for what the situation is. Well, what do you think?
You know, it's, you know, what can I say? I'm losing the will to live. Yeah, so guys, thanks for this little bit of kit. I'm able to actually run this not on mains but straight off a battery, which is brilliant for the van because I'm not having to run my inverter purely just for this. I can actually run this standalone straight off the battery, which means my inverter, if I choose to charge the laptop up, or better still run the aircon, is not having to power any additional items like this. So if you fancy playing around, I will say please be careful when you play around with mains electrics, especially one of these. Yeah, this is a nice little switch mode power supply. You can't really do much about these, so I would say bin it. Yeah, all I've got to do is glue this inside here so it doesn't rattle, and make sure the cable comes out the old hole there, and voila, everything's all working as it should. A nice little sound bar, quite cheap. Okay, for £5 you might be lucky enough to even get it cheaper than me, or you might have to pay sort of £10-15, but something purely for like van lifers, you know, who are off grid, want a bit of luxury in their vans. Do this mod, you won't regret it, and yeah, what can I say? Let's not get Karens to call my manager, because my manager does not give a damn, especially on a Sunday. Right guys, if you like this sort of interesting project, it's a bit of electronics with a bit of van life. Yeah. If you like what you see, please give us a thumbs up. If you haven't already, please subscribe. And just may, I might make another video. Take care guys, see you soon.